Hello and welcome to The Print. This episode of The Dashboard is brought to you by Hyundai India's Be the Better Guy campaign. Young India, buckle up for road safety. In the past few months, several new expressways across India have been opened to traffic. Stretches of the Delhi-Mumbai Expressway, stretches of the Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway, several expressways in Uttar Pradesh, and just the past few days, the 118-kilometer new Bengaluru-Mysuru Expressway that has cut the travel time between the two cities from 3 hours to just 75 minutes. But along with these new roads comes new problems. There have been some horrific accidents, such as the one in Maharashtra recently, where 5 women and a kid lost their lives on an expressway. So what does new road infrastructure bring to this country? What does it mean for road safety? To talk about that and much more, we have once again with us the Print's auto expert Kushan Mitra. Welcome Kushan, welcome to The Print.
Thank you Anurag.
And before we progress, let me tell our viewers that Kushan, you visited the Delhi-Mumbai stretch that has been opened. What were your observations there? Let's get straight into it.
So first, a slight apology. Some people must have seen a video I posted on social media when I was on the Delhi-Mumbai Expressway, and I was on the exit ramp at a rest stop. I should have been in the parking lot. I should not have shot over there, so my apologies. But that's the thing of these new roads. They're very, very fast. It's an incredible piece of infrastructure. It was remarkable. Now you can easily do from Rajiv Chowk in Gurugram to Dausa in under 3 hours. You'll be able to get to Jaipur in about 3 hours from Gurugram for sure. As I said, you just said Bengaluru-Mysuru, now it's 75 minutes.
Yeah, Delhi-Mumbai is according to the Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari, is just about down to 12 hours.
Oh, it'll be 12 hours, yeah.
Once the entire stretch is open.
And if you do it non-stop, it'll be able to do it at 10 hours because the road has a speed limit of 120, like most of these expressways.
Now, speed. I think that's where
that is the thing. Now, this accident you speak about on the Mumbai-Nagpur road, it was fascinating. It was a Maruti Ertiga, and there were 13 people in a car certified for just 7. And the driver survived because he was wearing his seatbelt. So again, please remember to buckle up. But that's just it. When we go onto these new roads, you have to make sure that you take all the precautions you can take. When you overload a car, and overloading is not just weight, but putting in extra passengers, putting in children in your laps. At the speeds you're talking about, 120 kilometers per hour, accidents are far more violent. I mean, momentum is a square function of velocity, after all, if you remember your physics. So it goes up, the square function, not just in a linear move. And it can be deadly. A car is 5-star rated. Somebody I was speaking to recently said, oh, but my car is 5-star rated. The crash test is done at 64 kilometers per hour.
Right.
And you have speed limits on these roads at 120. If people are following the speed limit, that is, some people I'm sure will take the opportunity to go faster. So we have to be very careful before going on these roads. Of course, visibility is a major thing. You can drive fast in the day. At night, you may not, be able to see as clearly. The condition of your tires, your tire tread. Take a key, check how deep your tire tread is. If your tire tread is below 5 millimeters, don't even drive. Right. So there are these things. And the government still has to do a lot of work in controlling access.
Right. Kushan, just to give our viewers, our listeners, a peek into what exactly did you see of the Delhi-Mumbai stretch that's opened till Dausa. What exactly did you witness? What sort of rules that you saw being flouted? You also mentioned two-wheelers going in a portion which it's not allowed.
It's not allowed. And the reason, some people said two-wheelers should be allowed because it's unfair on the poor, but on these high-speed roads, what happens is cars generate a lot of wind buffeting, right? So when you drive past a two-wheeler, and even if you're good 10 feet away, if I'm driving past a two-wheeler 120 kilometers per hour in a big SUV, the wind pressure could blow the guy off the road.
Right.
So that's why two-wheelers aren't allowed. And you shouldn't have differential speeds. While these two-wheelers can, crisscross on a city and go very fast, on a highway at those speeds, it's dangerous for the users.
Right. That's very interesting bit that you bring out here. That's in a way part of the driver's education that India needs to adopt. And would it be wrong to say that?
We need to have,
because people go with this straight logic, and as you mentioned, that a lot of people would say that why open a certain stretch of a road only for four-wheelers? So it could be seen as some sort of classist approach also. But why is it important then? Becomes more important for government, for authorities to indulge the drivers in driver education program?
You have to do a lot more. For example, across India, you notice whenever you're driving on a highway, whether they're the new expressways or older highways, that truck drivers tend to drive on the fast lane.
Right.
Now, one reason truck drivers drive on the fast lane, as I've spoken to many of these truck drivers, is that on the left-hand side lane, there's a lot of slow-moving traffic like cyclists, pedestrians, and motorcyclists and auto rickshaws. And truck drivers have told me, we can't afford to hit one of these guys because, the truck, there's no chance of survival. So to be safe, they drive on the right. But on these expressways, where you have, like on the Delhi-Mumbai Expressways, you have 4 lanes on each carriageway plus an emergency lane, so there are 10 lanes. Trucks have space. They don't have to drive on the right. But you need to educate your drivers about this.
Right. And where according to you, it should all start from?
It should start, actually, I have spoken to car companies, I've spoken to authorities in the past also. I've said you have to include driver education in schools. You're building all these nice new roads. Even inside cities, you have higher speeds, you have better cars. But you got to teach children how to drive from schools, at least in urban schools. Most children who will graduate from class 12 in a few weeks' time will probably drive a car or a two-wheeler in the next few years. So you have to learn. You have to have strict educational qualifications for people to get their licenses, to be able to understand how to read road signs. You don't need me to tell you that the license, getting a driving license is considered a joke. In India, it's improved a lot from the time I got my first license over 20 years ago. It has improved. It is a bit stricter now. Places like the ITDR in Sarai Kale Khan, you have proper testing of your abilities as a driver in a car without any fancy aids. But driver education has to start in school, and you need, I believe, a certain level of basic educational qualifications, which could be class 8 or class 10, whatever the government decides, to get a license.
So is there something that's already on when it comes to driver's education? Because the Minister for Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, about 2 weeks ago, he said that UP's roads would be better than the roads in US. And that's just a straight comparison from the developed economy and a state like Uttar Pradesh we have in India. But is the ministry, is the government, is some other nodal department doing something towards it?
I don't think they are. They are finally up doing some more strict tests for things like your eyes. I've written about this in my column in the past, that eye tests are very, very important.
Right.
But again, it's a very state-to-state thing. It's a state subject, right? Different states have different norms for licenses. But many, many years ago, I think when the NDA came back to power, I think Mr. Gadkari himself, I could be wrong, had said that drivers will have to have a minimum level of education. Commercial drivers will have to have a minimum level of education to get a license. And I remember people protested over then.
Right.
And I see a lot of the e-rickshaw drivers as well, where I live in Delhi and many other parts of Delhi. And, when you speak to them, it's quite clear that these guys are not educated.
Right.
So if you're not educated, how will you understand road rules? And that really has to change. Again, it seems elitist and classist and all of that. And it's sad, but, you would want, if you drive on those roads, your families drive on the road, other children are on those roads, you have to educate them. And talking about education, while I was driving coming back from Dausa towards Sona on the road, I saw a group of school children in New district that were crossing this new expressway. They were crossing the road. I'm barreling down at 120 kilometers per hour. The children crossing the road, and the road has been built at a height. There are underpasses that they're right about. There are children crossing the road. And these children were in school uniform.
Right.
So,
but driver education is I think, if I'm not wrong, is one aspect of it.
Yeah.
How do you see implementation of rules on these brand new expressways, where a lot of the stuff seems moving towards automation?
Oh yeah.
So would it not be a better idea to involve more manpower into implementation of safety rules?
Firstly,
and how is it happening? Or how is the difference, or how has been the experience in more developed countries where they have had this kind of infrastructure?
I actually give the example of China, including in my column. I give the example of China. China began its massive infrastructure build out about a quarter century ago. Before that, roads in China were as bad as roads in India were not so long ago. And I remember going to China for the first time as a journalist back in 2002, if I'm correct. And it was utter chaos on these new expressways. I was taking the road from inside Shanghai. Shanghai was building these elevated roads across the city. It was very chaotic in Shanghai back then. And the roads were chaotic. But I last went to China in 2018. And I noticed that the expressways were bigger, better, wider. And there was more order on the roads. And there was a very high level of automation.
Right.
So, in cameras, there are lots of cameras all across China. China has also made it far tougher to get a license. You have to do a written test. You have to be able to read the language, read road signs. It's a very, very strict test. Again, when it happened, a lot of the truck drivers, commercial drivers were not happy. But there is no choice. You have to have these strict tests. If you're serious about road safety, and we've mentioned again and again, 170,000 people died in India in last year. How do you reduce that number? Education enforcement will help. I mean, more enforcement is a good thing. And on these new expressways, one of the things I noticed on the Delhi-Dosa stretch were there a couple of areas marked with H, which is a helicopter landing strip. So hopefully there'll be better first aid and emergency services also, which we've been lacking in India. Many people, I'm sure, in India die unnecessarily because there's not enough first aid. But education has to begin in schools. It has to begin with, people, even like somebody like me, you can say, oh, you've gone through so much training, but we can always be educated all the time.
Do you think any sort of technical interventions can help the cause, like the fitment of speed governors or any sort of...
I don't agree with speed governors. Speed governors were implemented in NCR, but that led to a spurt of robberies on the Greater Noida road, as you've read, because a lot of guys thought it's an opportunistic thing. So again, enforcement will help. Some manpower will be required. You will require, even that manpower will have to be trained on how to drive on these roads. Chasing people who are speeding. There will be rich kids who will go in their fancy cars and driving at 250, 300 kilometers per hour. The Delhi-Mumbai Expressway is actually that good. You can go that fast. Please don't go that fast. But that's what you got to do. You have to have manpower, as you rightly mentioned.
And what is it in for the manufacturers, the automakers? How is it that they can include safety in this?
We've spoken about and written about advanced driver assistance systems, and I guess we'll also probably talk about that in more detail in a future episode.
But that's again, it's like, is India ready for ADAS?
On these expressways, ADAS works.
Okay.
I drove on the Yamuna Expressway with the new, the facelift of the Honda City. I put on lane assist, adaptive cruise control, which measures the distance of the vehicle in front, and it goes as fast as I tell it to go. It works. I mean, it should not work when I take my hands off the wheel. Unfortunately, there are some viral videos doing the rounds now where people are doing that. It's very unfortunate. But ADAS does work, so it can help, because one other thing with these expressways that we are building, whether it's the Delhi-Mumbai Expressway or the Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway, I haven't driven on the Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway, but the feedback I've got is that it is very, very straight. And when you're driving straight without much curving for hours on end, it is quite boring.
And maybe you tend to lose concentration.
Yeah, you will lose concentration. You want to be on your phone, you will doze off. I mean, sometimes I've driven down from, Delhi to Kanpur quite often because my wife's family is there, and it can be very, very boring driving on the Yamuna Expressway or even the Agra-Lucknow Expressway, because they are so straight, you are so bored. So I preoccupy myself by listening to music very loud or listening to a podcast, because if you're alone in the car, you can doze off. This accident that just happened on the Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway, apparently the driver dozed off. So if you are tired and you're driving on a highway or a road, if you are tired, pull over. Pull over at a rest stop, get some sleep, have a cup of tea, sleep. Do not have the disease of get-there-itis. I don't know if there's a Hindi term for that.
Absolutely. That's coming straight from our auto expert. And so it's not just building the infrastructure that this country needs.
Yeah.
It's also the implementation of rules of driver education to keep and make our roads safer. Kushan, before we let you go and before we meet next, what's coming up more in Dashboard?
Oh wow! So we are going to do an episode on ADAS, hopefully with our tech expert Sahil.
Absolutely. That's on the cards, which will involve both technology and an automobile come together.
And we will discuss some of these, videos that we're talking about ADAS. If people are doing stuff in the car, you should not do that. I will be driving the new Hyundai Verna in a couple of weeks' time. Can sedans make a comeback? I don't know, in the world of SUVs, where SUVs are now almost half the market. So that should be interesting. And we'll also be talking about some other safety issues in the future episodes as well.
Well, we leave it at that. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, and remember to be the better guy on the roads.